Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, if you've listened before, you know these are all companies that I used as an AD. They're all great companies. I really recommend that you check them out. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards for their support. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo, see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that demo today. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents loved the tools that Huddle provided. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school and it was just tremendous. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's Snap Raise. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day. Scheduling, rosters, results, you name it. For me, the athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is the gold standard. Go to homecampus.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast for more information. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team help you become a social media marketing expert. Whether it's a simple post to celebrate a victory or an entire online newsletter, it's going to showcase all the great things that your school's doing. The team at Gipper is going to have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. You got to see it to believe it. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. And don't forget to mention the podcast. We want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. And while he was completing his master's, he also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out the Ohio University online master's degree in athletic administration. We want to say thanks to Hometown. Hometown is changing the game for schools and organizations with their suite of platforms that includes things like, digital ticketing, but how about fee-free fundraising, athletic website construction, and a whole lot more. Go to hometown.com. Whether you're a AD, a head coach, or a school administrator, the platform is going to allow you to save time, raise more money, and bring your community together. You can find out more at hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Athletic Surveys. At my school, we use surveys for everything, kids, coaches, parents, and the information that would come back was almost always over the top positive, and it'll probably be the same for you. We also got to hear from those squeaky wheel parents and address their issues before they turned into something big. But having that positive feedback was incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them create a custom survey so you can take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We've got a repeat guest today. Regular listeners will recognize the name Chip Dale. Chip was a featured guest on our K-12 Sports Tech AD Think Tank a while back. Thought he'd be a great guest for the whole podcast, and so I invited him back for an interview. Chip is the director of athletics for Delphi High School. I just love the mascot, the Oracles. Hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Chip Dale, welcome back to the Educational AD podcast.
Thanks, Jake. Good beer.
Well, you and I were talking. We're recording this on May 27th. A lot of people are out for the summer finishing up state playoffs and things like that. Um, Chip, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own high school and college days. But what's the Chip Dale origin story?
Actually, from Delphi originally, born and raised. So I went to through all school here, and then down the road is Purdue University. So I went to Purdue for college. Got my undergrad there in computer graphics, and did a little time in sports marketing and minor league baseball before coming back to teach.
Wow. Let's talk about that Indiana, growing up in Indiana. Was it for you? Was it small town? Was it big city? Were you in the suburbs? What are some of your memories of those days growing up?
Yeah, so Delphi is about it's around 3,000 people live. It's a really small town. Um, Kind of your one horse, two stoplight town. And we are about 20 minutes north of Lafayette, where Purdue's campus is, West Lafayette, which again, their size is more, 60, 70,000, I think, in the metro area. So a little bit nicer, small city. More options there. You spend more time down there than you do in Delphi just because there's not as many things going on. But um, yeah, very rural. We live on a farm, grew up on a farm, all those types of things.
Sports wise, obviously, you had a connection with sports. What are some of your, memories of, backyard games or middle school, junior high? What was that like?
Yeah, I think that was, I grew up in the sweet spot where you could still ride your bike all day and come home whenever you felt like, and play backyard tackle football, and nobody thought twice about it. Played home run derby in the front yard with the fence, like, all those types of things. So, um, no, that was my friend group and everybody that we kind of grew up around. That's just what you did. You just played sports all the time. Um, and we were lucky. We had quite a bit of success as a group. We were a pretty tight knit group. And I think that was, to me, a big piece of coming back was trying to give back to something that I felt was so good to what we had growing up.
Well, you mentioned riding your bikes. I still remember, this is probably fifth, sixth grade. We'd ride our bikes to the high school football field stadium on Friday nights. We'd hide them in the bushes, at least we thought they were hidden, and then go in and watch the games. And just seeing those high school guys come running out full speed, I just remember saying, "Boy, that'd be so cool to do that," and then wondering, "Am I ever going to be big enough, to play high school football?" What are some of your memories of making that transition from little kid to junior high to varsity?
I was kind of lucky in the fact that so my dad and my mom were heavily involved in a lot of the youth programs. There was about five or six couples that ran our youth football program, and they were one of them. We were all really tight knit. It's funny because most of us now are back involved. Like it just kind of how it worked out, right? Like it just passed it on to the next generation. They're either coaching or involved in the youth ranks. So they were involved in, the football board and baseball board and all that. So we've kind of always been heavily involved, just as a family in giving back to those opportunities. And then again, we had a good group of kids that we all took it pretty serious. So we had a lot of success coming up the ranks where ahead of us they were doing kind of big things and winning things, and we were like, hey, we're the next group coming through to do it. um, so we always had that like there was a strong tie from top to bottom, I would say, that was just kind of always there. We played on the same field on Sundays instead of Friday or Saturday, and we would go watch practices, or they would send kids down to watch our practices, those kinds of things. So yeah.
Oh God, I just love that. Um, As you're moving into high school, again, I'm a lot older than you. So, were you a three-sport athlete? Was specialization kind of a thing as you were coming up?
Um, we were kind of, I mean, we were still on that old school mentality of play multiple things. Um, I always played football. That was always my thing. When I was younger, I played a lot of baseball and then kind of fell out of it. Um, and then ended up coming back to it a little in high school. I golfed a lot. I found wrestling in high school. That was my dad was always a basketball guy, so I was always around basketball court, but I'm terrible at it. Um, Dribbling and shooting are not skills that I have. So I found wrestling in high school and fell in love with that. That's one of my passions for sure. And we've had a very successful program here. And we were actually kind of on that. We had a lot of success when it first formed, and then we kind of had a dip, and then our group was kind of the group that brought it back. Um, we're able to kind of pass it on to the next generation that had a lot of success. So I played a lot of things. I always played football and I always wrestled in high school. And then, like I said, some years I played baseball, some years I played golf. A couple years I just lifted in the off season, that kind of thing. So we tried a lot of things. Most of my friends were at least two sport athletes. It wasn't very common to have a one sporter.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. That was just very odd. Um, All right, let's make that transition to college. I think many of us, whether we acknowledged it to ourselves, we probably kind of knew, the NBA or the NFL wasn't going to be calling. But at least in my case, I had great high school teachers, high school coaches, and I just said that's what I want to do. Um, as you were making that move to college, had you already decided that, teaching and coaching, maybe one day becoming an AD was for you, or did that happen later on?
No, that was definitely later on. So we had a pretty special thing. We were kind of at the again, we were right at the end of that, old school stuff where the staff that was teaching here were all the original people who had opened the building in 1970. I graduated in 2001 from here. And so I'd had a few of the teachers who were really good mentors to me who'd said, "Hey, you'd be really good at education." I'm like, no, I want to be a lawyer, is what I thought I wanted to do. So I kind of don't want to do that. I think I'm going to do something else. So I got into college. I realized I did not want to go to law school. Not at the time. I've thought about it since actually, but decided didn't want to go to law school and do something else. And I found computer graphics while I was in college. That's when I changed my major. But really, the calling to education was kind of one of those things that they had said you'd be good at it, and it was kind of in the back of my mind, but never really something I explored. Um, I ended up, like I said, going through computer graphics. I specialized in like video effects and stuff,
Hmm.
3D, that type of stuff, and got into sports marketing and really just came back and did a career day. Um, the principal at the time came in and said, "Hey, you're really good with these kids. Have you ever thought about teaching? We got a job opening that actually you'd be perfect for them." No, I'm good. Um, and when I got married, we got married, and she's like, "I want to move home." It literally just kind of fell in my lap. Like, okay, this is something to let's go see if this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it just turned into, yeah, this is where I think, full circle to think back to the teachers when I was 17 years old. It's just kind of funny to think that they had the foresight that I didn't, and that's where I ended up.
Well, I love it. And that's a perfect transition into our next segment. Let's go and take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from our guest, Chip Dale. He's the director of athletics for Delphi High School. That's in Indiana. Now, let's go and take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but When I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a huddle school, and our coaches, our kids, even our parents just loved the tools that Huddle provided, but there's a lot more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com.
Yeah, it's funny you had Huddle on as second. Like that's one for me that like that's worth every penny as far as coaches go. Just the amount of as a football coach, the amount of time that it saves you, to not have to worry about exchanges and all that stuff now. Like some of the stuff they're doing is pretty good stuff. Um, Sideline, we've been using it a little bit, like it. So big fan of what they got going on.
Oh, well, I appreciate you giving a shout out to both of them. I tell people all the time, I think I just said it, sideline, our indoor score table is the best purchase I ever made. I only wish we would have bought the biggest one instead of the medium sized one because it's so cool. And absolutely, as a football coach, Huddle was the great thing. As an AD, I just love seeing our other coaches use it, using the Huddle platform. So thanks for that shout out. Hey, our guest today is Chip Dale. He's a repeat guest. He was part of the K-12 Sports Tech AD Think Tank a while back, and now he's back for his own interview. Chip, you kind of took us through your college days and how it was, as you described it, full circle, bringing you back to your own high school, Delphi. Share a little bit about that part of your career and journey before you became an AD. What are some memories that you have from those days as a rookie teacher?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting coming from the minor league baseball. You're working sometimes 30, 40 days in a row without a day off and all those crazy things to then come into the classroom and have 20, 30 kids sitting in front of you, wide eyed and supposed to teach them things. Like, very different mentality to um, just the schedule and the way things operate. It's like everybody else. It takes I find the more I've been doing this, it takes those 3, 4 years in a classroom before you even really realize what you're doing. Like you're just treading water for so long before you start to get a feel for what you need to do and have to do. So I taught computer graphics is what I taught originally and business. Um, and we had a bunch of budget cuts in the state really as I started teaching. So a lot of us got laid off. There was, I think, 8 of us, 8 teachers got cut right as I came back into teaching. So I went out and thought of it more as an opportunity. Let's go find some other schools and some other people that I can learn from because obviously I was back in the hometown that I was growing up in. So we went out and taught some business at a different school that's actually they're in our conference. Taught there for a bit, and my wife was teaching at a neighboring school, and they still had the ability to, if you both worked here in the same school, you got free health insurance. So it was like, well, that's where we need to be. We need that benefit. So I ended up going there and taught math for a while, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot from some. They were on that cutting edge too, or that edge too, where a lot of their old guard were retiring. So I got to learn from a lot of those guys who had been in that town for a long time. Some great relationships that I still carry. And then got an admin job and then came back into Delphi. This is my 4th year back. So I was in admin for 3 years at a different school, and then this job finally came back open to be able to come home.
Now, prior to, say, this last year or two, or before you became the AD, was that something that was ever on your radar about, becoming an athletic director for high school?
I would say yes. It's kind of one of those like when I took the job, I told him this was always a job. It was always a job that I admired and that I thought I could do well and that I wanted to do. Was never like that's what I'm going to do. That's the job that I'm going to end up in. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and that's the end goal. But it was always one like when I was in high school, the AD here was a great guy. I knew him very well. Was close friends with his daughter. Like, and always thought that's pretty cool what he gets to do on a daily basis. Um, and it's one of those that it's almost like I look back, it's crazy because we had an AD who was here for over 40 years. And then the next longest tenured is maybe 15 years. And then there's been so much turnover. It's like, you know what? It's time to take the mantle and try to bring some stability back like we used to have. And so it's been it, again, it's one of those like I always wanted but never knew I wanted.
I want to save some stuff for our next segment, but as the opportunity was presenting itself to you, you've been a classroom teacher, obviously you've been in the school culture. Um, were there um, were there things about the job that really attracted you? Were there things that you're saying, "Geez, there's no way I want to be an AD because of X, Y, or Z"? What are some of your memories of that time prior to maybe being offered the job?
Yeah, from my first AD job, there's definitely things that were attractive about it. It, it takes, like we all know, it takes a different person to sit in these desks. Um, you have to really want to give different opportunities to kids, and you've got to be willing to sacrifice a lot, personally with your family, just to lead a community in that direction and to give kids a chance to compete. Um, I kind of looked around as I was teaching, going, well, somebody's got to do this because these are opportunities that I value and I know I got a lot out of. And if someone else doesn't take that and run with it, well, I mean, I think we all realize we're kind of in a battle right now to save this. Um, the travel ball and all these different things keep kind of chipping away at this community building. We're all in this together thing that's pretty special. And it's been around in Indiana for over 100 years. Like I would like to be one of them that they can say, look, help kept it going for another 100, because there's a chance it's not. And so you look at that and it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to give up some things in these other areas, but I think I'm going to get a fulfillment in somewhere else that's pretty special. So that's there. I think, coming back here, huge deterrence as far as like, do you really want to go back to the place you grew up where everybody thinks they have access and everybody thinks they can say things just to you because you've known each other? And I have to walk that line a lot. Kids I grew up with or kids I played with, that now we have kids together, they're growing up and they want to say things to me that you've got to look at them and go, whoa, 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 you're blurring a line. Like we can have the conversation professionally or we can have the conversation as friends. You know which way both are going. So that was definitely deterrent. I think, to me, um, it takes a lot on the family to commit to this and do it right. And it's one that I was excited to do.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And you said it with your opening statement. It just takes a different person to, want to embrace all of that stuff because you see all the good things. Hey, we could do this in the community, the school, the kids could do this, but at the same time, it is going to have an impact, on your family, on your relationships, etc. Um, the question that I hear again and again, or not a question, but a statement, I wish I knew this going in. You were an athlete in high school, you had coaches, you knew who the AD was, you saw the job. What was something that you found out as an AD that you wish you knew going in? And maybe would it have made any difference?
I think back to one of my favorite lines. So I've had it. My football coach growing up, he's one of those never ending one liners. He's always got one that you're like, yep, that hit. That's what it is. Pretty funny, but it hit. So I took the job coming back, and I ran over to his house before the board meeting just to say hi and see how he was doing. And he's like, "So you're going to take that job, huh?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You know what the worst part about that job?" Because he'd been an AD too. I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, you got to rely on people to do their best, and they inevitably fail you." Just and I looked at him. I go, "That's probably true." He goes, "No, it's true. Just trust me." And there's some truth to that level of expectation and the level of follow through that you are counting on. You know, we're a small school, high school of 450. So, I look at it like this. I've got 1,200 direct reports by the time we go down to K-12, kids, adults, the whole nine yards, right? I make a decision and that's going to impact 1,200 people. Um, and I'm counting on 200 of them to do something, whether it's taking out the trash or organizing a practice or cleaning a closet or organizing their equipment or all those things, right? You're counting on them, and inevitably someone is going to disappoint you. They're just not going to have the same level of care and attention to detail that you want. And I think that's probably the thing that you've got to balance the most. That it's like, I wish I'd had some perspective starting off is how do you balance that? I need you here, but I'm also okay with here. Like I just need this base level completed. I'd like to be up there, but I think that's something that's big is managing those expectations that you have yourself.
Yeah, that's a great as you mentioned, kind of a one-liner. And there's a tremendous amount of truth in that. I remember as a young coach, uh, I had an athletic director tell me, um, and I was coaching JV football, right out of college, and he said, "Hey, Jake, you're doing a great job. I just want you to remember the kid talking about the kids. They're never going to want it as much as you want it. You became a coach, you want it. Maybe one of those kids might become a coach. And it's kind of the same as an
Correct.
AD. The coaches, they're happy coaching, and they again they do a great job. We love them all, but in many ways they're never going to want it as much as we want it as athletic directors. Great stuff. Let's go and take another quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask Chip to share all the great things that he does and his coaches do and his kids do at Delphi. So let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Snap Mobile, particularly Snap Raise, for their support. If you've ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results, you need to check out Snap Raise. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it, our parents loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's Snap Raise. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. For me, the athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is a gold standard. Now, even if your state association has a different platform, you can still use Home Campus as an individual school, particularly for that eligibility platform. You really need to check it out. That's homecampus.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you up and running in no time. And whether it's a simple social media post to celebrate a victory or an entire newsletter that's going to showcase all the great things that your department's doing, the team at Gipper is going to have you making world-class content in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. And don't forget to mention the podcast.
Yeah, Gipper's been pretty good to us. We picked them up, I think maybe two national conferences ago. I had some ADs told me about them. I actually just signed on for their early trial for their Gipper display. We're going to try to do a Hall of Fame display, touch display with them. So I'm pretty excited about that. It looks like it's pretty user friendly, like most of their products are. So we're actually even starting a class. I've got 5 students that have signed up. They're going to come in and be more of like our social media managers. So I'm excited to see what we can do with them.
Again, I appreciate you giving them a shout out, and you're absolutely right. I'm no longer at a school, but we use Gipper for the podcast promotion. But I hear AD after AD talking about adding the features, the newsletter, the display, and you hit it on the head. Getting your student athletes involved, getting an assistant coach sometimes involved as those social media people. Great delegation of authority. Certainly, there's still oversight from you as the AD, but getting those kids to use it, that is fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Hey, for our listeners, our guest today is Chip Dale. He's the director of athletics at Delphi High School, the high school that he attended. Chip, this is your chance to do some bragging about your kids, your coaches, your program, even yourself. Share with our listeners. You mentioned the enrollment, a little over 400 students, but um, what kind of sports do you offer? What are some things that you're particularly proud of about your school that you can share?
We offer just about everything. We've got, all the kind of traditionals: football, soccer, cross country, track, basketball, wrestling, swimming. I'm sure I'm missing some, and I'm going to get yelled at. Baseball, softball, you know how that goes. Um, I would say, as far as some things we do really well, one of the charges that I came in when I took the job was that I really wanted to elevate our platform and our voice, and elevate, just the clout of what we do. So one marked effort that we've put in place the last 4 years since I've been back is creating larger scale events. I think it's important that other schools, other communities look at those big events, and when you do them well, they look at them as a gold star on your resume. And so we've started a ton of tournaments, and I think because of our reputation, they've been very easy to fill. We've started. We have a 16 team girls wrestling tournament. We have what did we have? 13 team boys wrestling tournament, an 8 team softball tournament. We'd never hosted a golf invitational before. We hosted two now in a row. Same thing, cross country. We now host a high school, middle school double. But again, these big scale events that I think people that aren't normally coming in, they come in and they see you do something on that scale, and to do it well, I think is important. So we've tried to spread it out. So just about every program we have has some major event that they host. Before I came, they'd already started a basketball tournament. I expanded that. We now have 8 boys and 8 girls teams that play in it. So it's stuff like that, I think, that we do really well here. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, and sometimes money to put these on, but we really value what it gets back to us. I think we do a really good job here. Just departmentally, I've got a lot of really good coaches who are very introspective, and we can sit down and have conversations, and nobody gets their feelings hurt. Nobody thinks twice about it. We're all going towards the same goal, right? We're trying to make these kids better. We're trying to have a better experience. We're trying to put on something for the community. And we can just have those conversations. I think that's something that I'm pretty proud of what we've done in the last couple of years to really turn that culture towards let's do something big. Um, I think as far as organization goes, um, I know I've had several of my colleagues and friends that have said, since you've been there, it's kind of been a breath of fresh air. As far as we know, you're gonna answer the phone. We know that your schedule's probably going to be right. Like those things, when you're confirming, it's all the little things that make the job difficult, right? Like you're managing whatever 23 varsity teams, like it's a lot. So I think those are things that we do well. We've got a good team that we've built in the last couple of years here that really is on that same mission of this is just what we do. Sometimes it's going to be a long night, sometimes it's going to be a long week, but that's what we do.
I love how you touched on, I think those two branches, there's probably more, of being an athletic director. Those details, the management things, hey, your schedule, we know your schedule is going to be right because there's a million different schedules out there. We all know it. The management's important, but you led with a big surprise. You led with the leadership part about, meeting with your coaches and discussing things and being on the same page. It's such a, I don't want to say it's a delicate balance, but it is a balance of, making sure the buses run on time and the officials and the teams and all that. You got to do that. But if you're not doing it in the leadership end, that's going to also create some problems for you. You mentioned right off the bat, talking about Gipper, how you're getting some students involved to kind of help develop that social media thing or make it even better. Um, I think athletic directors love to do professional development, but sometimes they don't get a chance to. What are some things that you have done or that you always make sure you do in that area of professional development beyond the meetings that you talked about, which again are great
As far as personally, or for like the staff, or both?
for the staff, but also for yourself? Absolutely.
Um, for the staff, we've done some different things. Like, we'll do regular meetings. One thing I really enjoy is providing like almost like a TED talk in those meetings. So, like 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the session, hand it over to one of my coaches that I know does something really well and just say, look, I'm not going to tell you what to talk about. You talk about whatever you want. I feel like as a department, here's an area that I think people can learn from you on, and just talk. Tell them things, and we've had some really good discussions and ideas that have came out of that. Um, and and then depending on the pulse of where you're at, it can be really, confident building for a young coach to hear an old coach go, look, you don't have to put up with that. It's okay. Just do that. Just do it. Like, just make the decision. Everybody in this room has got your back. Like, we all see the same thing you're seeing. Right. So I think that's something we've done that I like. Um, we have mandatory PD stuff that the state requires. Obviously we have to do all those types of things, but really we don't take that hardcore formal thing. One thing I do is I pay for my coaches to go to one clinic. We pay for it straight out of the athletic department. I think it's important. I pay for their coaches association fees, and I pay for them to go to one clinic. They can pick whatever it is. I don't care. I always pay for the clinic fees, and then hey, we'll pay for one hotel room or whatever. We'll try to offset the cost because I think it's important for them to A, network, and B, go get some new ideas.
Mhm.
So that's something we definitely do here. Personally, I do the same thing. I go to the National AD clinic. I go to our state clinic. Um, I try to network as much as humanly possible. I think it's important because when you have those friends and those colleagues that you can call and they're going to answer the phone, they're going to shoot you straight. Um, I think it's extremely important, and that's kind of the direction that I've kind of pushed our department in: is join your coaches associations, meet those people that you can call when you need an answer and you don't want to ask me, right? Like, you just need to bounce ideas off somebody. You need to have those connections.
No, absolutely. Great. Right. Great stuff. And you talked about having your coaches speak in your coaches meetings. I did the same thing. I certainly didn't invent that. I heard somebody else suggest it, and we did it. And it was probably one of the best things I ever did, because you're absolutely right. It gives those coaches an opportunity to share some great ideas that they're doing, talk to those younger coaches, and even sometimes the young coaches, they have an opportunity to share. So,
Well,
speaking of,
I find too that it also builds that trust, and it's not just lip service that I value what you do. They really see you saying, no, really, you do this really well. You should share it.
yeah,
It's very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. They
edifying.
appreciate it, and that it also builds that confidence that they do it well.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That spirit to core, we're all in this together. Great stuff. Speaking of networking, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, find out how you do things with your program at Delphi, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can get a hold of Chip Dale?
Easiest way is just through email. It's Dalec, Dalec, at Delphi, Delphi dot K12.in.us. That's the easiest way.
Okay. And we'll give that information out again at the end of the podcast. We're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to make sure we say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. You put one of these in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be like a magnet for kids, for coaches, parents. How about alumni and sponsors? You got to see it to believe it. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. And don't forget to mention the podcast. We also want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. While he was earning his master's, he also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. And we'd like to say thanks to Hometown. Hometown is still changing the game for schools and organizations with their platforms that include things like, big surprise, online ticketing. They're still the number one online ticketing provider for schools and colleges. But how about athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising, and a lot more? Whether you're an athletic director, a head coach, even a school administrator, Hometown makes it easy for you and your school to save time, raise more money, and bring your entire community together. For more information, check out hometown.com. That's it, hometown.com. You're going to be very glad you did. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Chip, we get a lot of newer ADs, younger ADs that listen to the podcast, and I think it's important for them to hear about the journey that we all take, with our state association and with NIAAA. So, can you share a little bit? How did you first hear about your state association and the national association? What are some of the things that you do to stay involved?
I'm lucky in the fact that I've got some pretty good mentors along the way. Some of them highly involved in the association, some of them not. And so I had heard about conferences and those different types of things, and just started looking into it. And I think for me, it's you've got to kind of take a little bit of a look at yourself and decide, what's your legacy and what are you trying to do and what is your end goal. And one of the things I said earlier was I'm really trying to elevate our voice and trying to put us on a stage that when I make a phone call, it's going to get answered and we're going to have a good dialogue and we're going to come up with solutions and all of those types of things. If I've got a question, I can call and it's going to get answered. And I think that's the thing for me that being part of the association is so important is that it has created a network of ADs all across the state that I know when I call, they're going to answer. And they're going to have a very similar experience that I have had, or are going to have an answer for me that I hadn't thought of. And I think that's the key is getting involved so that when you need that, you've got it. And even when you don't need that, you just need somebody who understands, and that's it. I think that's important. There's not a lot of people that do what we do across the country or even in the world and don't understand the pressure and the stress sometimes that comes with trying to lead a community. And you've got to have somebody who understands that. It's kind of like I remember Letterman and Leno used to talk like they're the only two guys that could talk to each other. Why? Well, because they're the only two guys that understand what they're doing. No one else is doing that. And I feel like there's a lot of times that the association really helps fill that void that you need at times.
You mentioned you got to the conferences. Usually, a common response of, "Well, how'd you like the conference?" It's one of two things. Wow, I didn't realize all the things that I wasn't doing that I need to do. and bring them back to the school, or I didn't realize all the cool opportunities that were out there. What were some of your takeaways from those early conferences that you attended?
Yeah, I think it's both. You get the, especially early on, like, yeah, I remember a good friend of mine, he went to a Title IX, hour long talk, and he came back and he's like, we're gonna have nothing but Title IX violations and da 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 da, and just drinking through a fire hose. But then on the other side, you go to talks and listen to people throw out ideas, and you go, wow, I really like that's something I can do that's not going to take a ton of time and is going to have a big impact. Um, those types of things. And honestly, I think that even more so than the formal talks, it's that, after hours networking and going to the different events, that okay, Gipper is going to put on a social event and you're going to put all these ADs in one spot. And those conversations you have and those connections you make are just as important, if not more, because you're going to have the exact same conversations, but you're having it with someone who's also sitting right next to you. And I think those things are important. I like, you see a lot of stuff too with the vendors that you didn't even know that was a possibility. And you come up with ways that you think could save you time or effort, or again, put in a big impact. So that's been my experience on the national conference. And again, it's an amazing experience. I think the state conference here, we do a really good state conference, very similar. It's more of a, it's more homey, I guess you would say, tighter knit. We usually have a pretty good chunk of the state who shows up. It just kind of depends on the timing. I know this year was a little thinner because we had a lot of spring breaks around that time, so a lot of us couldn't go. But again, it's those, not only in that case, but you're also going to listen to talks from people who you do have a personal connection with and you do respect and you do value their opinion. And so when you see, oh, they're talking on X, Y, or Z, that's something I didn't really think about, but because I have that connection with them, I'm going to go at least hear what they have to say. So I think those things are important.
I would agree 100%. The LTI courses, they're great on their own right, but it's those conversations you have at the table, or even just a workshop, or as you said, at some of the socials. I remember I got the idea for what became my CMAA project at one of those socials at a round table, just talking to some other ADs from 7 or 8 different states. Just a great, great experience. Thanks so much for sharing that, and thanks for sharing with our listeners today. But we're not done. We always like to wrap up with a segment called the Athletic Director's Toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new AD on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in the toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to see what Chip Dale puts in his new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys for their support of the podcast. In my school, we use surveys for everything, for student athletes, for coaches, for parents. And the information that would come back was generally very, very positive. But we also got to hear from those squeaky wheel parents and hear their concerns, usually keep them from turning into something big. But having all of that positive feedback was incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with one of those frustrated parents, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Chip Dale. He's the director of athletics at the Delphi High School. That's in Indiana. Tremendous background in sports and athletics. But right now, I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new AD on their very first job. But I'm only going to let him put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Chip, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
I thought about this. I think if I'm going to give a new AD the number one toolbox, the number one tool, the thing that I think they've got to have, I think it's a soft skill. Um, and it deals with dealing with, you kind of just mentioned it a second ago, those difficult families in the commercial. When you're dealing with difficult situations and difficult families, I think it's important to remember one thing, that you cannot rationally debate irrational people. You can't do it. Oftentimes in this job, you are going to be the first person to tell somebody no in their entire life, and they're not going to know how to react to that, and it's not going to be pretty. They call you names and they point your finger and post things on social media and all the stuff that's just chaos. And those are all just learned behaviors that they're trying to get through what they want. But in reality, you know the correct course that you have to be on. And it's not easy to sit there and not respond to them, and to not, breathe life into that chaos. But that you have to have that patience and not engage that. Um, in that moment, it being calm and having a clear direction is more important than anything. And what I found is over the years, um, when you're sitting in there and they're calling you names and doing all those things that we all know they do, as soon as they walk out, mm, they're never going to apologize to you, but they're going to in some way eventually. I find that oftentimes those parents end up right back helping programs, and they're positive and they act like nothing has ever happened. And you're like, what did just like 2 minutes ago, I was the worst enemy, but now we're best friends again. But it's that understanding that it's almost like parenting your own child, right? They're mad and they're going to tell you they're mad, but they also know that in the end, they're going to respect you more for doing the thing that has to be done, even though you might not want to do it or might not like it. So, that being rational in the face of irrationality, I think, is important. Um, so I think that's probably the number one.
No, I would agree 100%. You touched on so many other, different categories that we talk about, communication, listening, etc. But absolutely tremendous tool. What else do you got?
Next, I think this is something that I don't even know where I picked it up or got the idea for it. Is handwritten thank you notes. So no one will ever get a handwritten thank you note and not appreciate it, right? There's something special about getting something that someone took time out of their day to write you a thoughtful message and say da 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 da, da whatever it is. So like for me, like I actually have one on my desk right here. So make some type of stationery, and I have different styles. Some say Delphi Athletics, some say our logo just says thank you, whatever. Just something that you can put in an envelope and send off. And it sounds dumb to say that, but sending an email is so impersonal and so easy. To take time out of your day to let someone know, hey, you've impacted me, or you've gave me something, or even I find probably the one that I get the most feedback on is unprompted. I know somebody is in the middle of something. Us as leaders, we don't get the chance to talk to everybody about what we're going through, but we can appreciate it from afar because we know exactly what that feels like, to be in the middle of something stressful or whatever that you're trying to lead a group through. And so, like, I'll send those out, and those are the ones I get the most response on. And I don't do it, there's not like a schedule, it's nothing like that. What I do is I literally set the stack of them right here on my desk so that it's just a reminder that it's there. And I'll get the urge every now and then to, hey, I need to write somebody who's somebody I feel like would be impacted. And I look at it almost like karma, right? If we're going to deal with all this negative, if I put some positive out in the world, eventually that positive is going to come back to me. And I know that in my case, every now and then, you get one from somebody, and it makes you go, oh yeah, somebody saw that. And I think it's an important skill that we've forgotten because it's so easy to type an email. But when you get an email, you don't even really read it. You get a handwritten note, you read it, and you appreciate it. So that's probably the second one I would put out there.
And again, it's something that is not done enough and probably has one of the biggest um, return on investments for the time it takes to write it that you can imagine. I would do those for every single one of our kids who was named to all county. Again, had the stationery, wrote him a little note, congratulations, appreciate everything you do for the program, all the best. And I would have parents that would come back to me just in tears, because of, my daughter, my son was just so happy to get your note. So absolutely great stuff.
Okay, my third one. This kind of goes towards the management of events type stuff, and I stole this from one of my mentors. Again, we all steal. That's what we do. If you don't steal, you're doing it wrong. So hosting large scale events, I do all the planning documents like we all do, and I manage those and all the think through all the scenarios so that whatever happens, I can have a plan before it hits. But I think one of the biggest tips that I can give is to use your varsity head coaches in those big events. So, for example, you're hosting like a 6 or an 8 team, state level tournament, sectional, regional, whatever you call it, district, all those things. You get all these people coming in that have no idea, for the most part, how your facility works, where things are, what they need, all those types of stuff. So, what I do, and again, I stole this off one of my mentors. All my varsity head coaches get called in and say, "Hey, look, we're hosting a basketball sectional. We got 6 teams coming in. Each coach is assigned one group. So they've got this team, that team, the officials, whatever. And they are assigned to them as a liaison for the entire duration of the tournament. And what that does is it's that delegation piece of now they're not going, where's the AD? Where's XYZ? How do I find the trainer? Because you have someone who is a varsity head coach who sees things through the lens of a varsity visiting coach and oftentimes are going to meet them with what they need before they even get there. So the visiting teams get their cell phone number ahead of time. They send us their arrival times. So my coach will meet them at the door. Hi, coach. Da 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 da. Come on, I'm going to take you to the locker room. Is there anything you need? All those types of things that just put that polish on your hosting event, where they leave going, dang, they do things right. I didn't need anything. Anytime I needed it, Johnny was over there in the corner. I just had to yell, "Hey, Johnny," and he'd get up and go get it for me. Like, I think that's one of those that, to be able to put those on, you've got to take stuff off your plate. And that's something where it doesn't cost your coaches a whole lot of effort. They get to watch the tournament anyway. And it's a huge impact on just the flow of everything that's going on.
Yeah. Again, another little gold nugget there. Your coach is probably going to be at the tournament anyway. Get him involved. Who knows? Maybe your principal, your superintendent will, free up a little bit of cash. Maybe pay him out of the cash box if you still use that. If you're not completely over to online ticketing. Great, great advice, Chip. Thanks again for coming back on the podcast and sharing with our listeners. Again, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and add you to their network, what's the best way they can get a hold of Chip Dale?
Yeah, easiest way is email. I'm not a social media guy. I don't do that. Not my thing. I try to avoid that stuff. But if you email me at dalec at Delphi, DELPHI K12.in.us, that's the quickest way. I'm pretty quick on a response.
Okay. Well, all the best with your wrap up to the 2025 spring season, and hope you have a great summer. Also, look forward to connecting with you down the road on the podcast, and we'll definitely have to look each other up at the national conference in Tampa.
Let's date.
For our listeners, we appreciate you, and thanks for joining us. Just a reminder, we do this just about every day. We try to share best practices, along with stories from the world of athletics. So hopefully you'll join us again on the Educational AD Podcast. Have a great day.